Welcome back. It is part 2 of episode 7 of Elantris.
Yes, sir. Part 2.
Are we on episode 7? Did I get that right?
I think we're on episode 7.
Nailed it.
Which is funny because, actually, this is, the 17th, episode on our Spotify.
Right. Because, we had 3, introductory episodes.
And then 6 two-parters.
Was it 3 introductory episodes?
We had the trailer.
Introducing, and then Intro to the Cosmere. So, introduction to the podcast, introduction to the Cosmere.
And then Elantris. And then we also had our top 5 episode.
Oh, that's true.
And then we've had 6 two-parters.
So
12, 4, 16. We just finished our 17th. So this will be the 18th, episode,
right,
quote unquote, on our thing. So it's funny that we're episode 7.
Yeah.
We just break every episode into 2 parts. So, anyways, not important.
Welcome back to part 2 of episode 7 of Elantris.
We're gonna jump into Sereni's chapter and Hrathen's chapter. I was just telling Jax that I could sum up the first 4 pages of Sereni's chapter, maybe even more. Probably the first 7 pages of Sereni's chapter in 3 to 4 sentences.
But we're not going to do that because this is a deep dive podcast and we're going to go over every paragraph, every sentence, every word,
every syllable.
There it is.
That's a deep cut for those of you who listened to our first episode or something. 17 episodes ago. I'm going to do it. And then we can deep dive.
All right, you have your fun.
Okay. Stop kicking your camera.
I like to splay my legs out.
Pause. Okay. Hold on.
3 sentences?
3 or 4, I said.
Okay.
Sereni gets the gang together for a meeting.
Sentence number 1.
They discuss the king and the Gjorn and the economy.
Sentence number 2.
We're already 2 pages in.
Sentence number
3. No, shut up.
I think that gets us at least 4 pages in, actually.
I'm going to do 4 sentences. The gang agree to help Sereni with her plans.
3.
Oh, hold on. I needed to say widow's trial in that third one. The gang agreed to help Sereni with her widow's trial. And that's pretty much it.
3 sentences. You could then also add a 4th sentence that's going to get you through 3 more pages of Sereni talks to King Iadon about her widow's trial and a trade treaty with Teod.
And that's almost the entire chapter. But this is a deep dive podcast.
This is a deep dive.
So
let's go back
to the beginning.
Ahane is confronting. Obviously, we already told you guys. She called a meeting. Gangs together. We're missing Royal and Lukel. Not Royal. Sorry, Kian and Lukel.
Yeah,
they had a previous engagement.
Which, do we ever figure out what that previous engagement was?
I don't think so.
Because that's kind of
some pirate stuff.
Yeah, Kian's definitely teaching Lukel to be a pirate. So, it starts with Sereni basically being we got to help Iadon. And then Ahane's help him? I thought we didn't like him. I thought we were trying to undermine him.
And she's like, you're right.
But Mr. Gjorn, this, that.
Don't ever say Gjorn again.
Mr. Gjorn, this, that. And so we got to help him out. Because she knows that the Gjorn is helping Telri get more wealthy while also trying to make Ion less wealthy. So in the current construct of this economic system, Telri would have a claim to the throne, and then Telri can get the throne, and then he is more open to making it a Derethi state.
I don't have the energy for whatever that was right now.
That was sick. Y'all thought that was sick. I thought that was sick.
So she tells him, like, you know, this is happening. Wern is sinking his ship. They're backing Telri, all this. And they're like, do you have any proof? She's like,
No. But she knows that, like, they all have spies.
Yeah, she says, I do, however, have logical conjecture. It's like,
Oh.
okay, Sereni. And it talks about Telleri's party. Shuden comes in and says extravagance isn't a sign of wealth. Like, not necessarily. Like, I've seen some of the poorest people putting on a good show. And they're like, everybody probably, like, side glances over at, like, Edon. Because he's like,
Yeah.
he's sitting there doing that exact thing. Like, trying to put on this face, this show of wealth so that it doesn't lose his title.
Yeah. Ahane does a bit more than just side glances at him. He was like, you might not be the only one who loses your title in the next few months. Ahane is so mean to people. I don't like Ahane.
No.
At all.
No. And if you don't remember what Ahane does towards the end of this book, you won't like Ahane either.
Yeah, but even, like, not considering his betrayal.
Yeah.
I just don't like him.
Spoilers.
Spoilers. That's my thing. I don't like Ahane even before that.
Yeah.
He's a terrible person.
Yeah.
Maybe not like terrible.
Not
person.
terrible person.
Annoying.
Contrary.
Stupid. Maybe that was a little
harsh.
That was a little harsh. I'm sorry, Ahane.
Yeah.
Except I'm not. You can go die in a hole.
Anyway, Edon asks nervously, it's like, what do you want us to do? Like, send gifts to the king? It's like, I don't have any money to spare. And Ahane, you know, still being contrary, is like, none of us do, Edon. If it was spare, it wouldn't be valuable now, would it? And it's like, okay, shut up, Ahane.
Actually, shut up, Ahane.
And
anyway,
he all chides him. He's like, you know what he means, Ahane. Like, and I doubt gifts are what the princess had in mind.
So they go on to talk about how, like, Iodon is not really
accept gifts.
He's not a political person. He's a merchant, and so, like, if you're gonna give him something for free, he's not gonna take it because he finds that suspicious.
Yes,
sort of thing. And so they're trying to figure out a way of, like, okay, well, how do we help him without him getting that suspicion? Sort of.
Yeah.
Thing.
And Sereni kind of opens it up for suggestions. She's like, I'm not a merchant. I'm a politician.
Yeah. She's like, I have no idea. Like, what do you guys think? So we're going back and forth a little bit, but eventually she chimes in and she's like, oh, what if, like, he had a lucrative deal with Teod? It's like, Teod can afford it.
Yeah.
And, like, I can set that up. And they're like, that might work. That could be.
Right. But they're like, but if you just go to him and is like, hey, I want to set you up with this lucrative deal with Teod, he's going to be suspicious.
Yeah. So you gotta walk in on eggshells there. You gotta be careful with it. We kind of jumped all over the place.
Yeah.
I wanted to talk about this. They're talking about how his ships were sunk by Wern.
And he assumes, I'm sure, that it was Driat Crushthroat, because piracy is something that merchants understand.
Yeah.
He doesn't. I'm sure this is the line you're talking about. It says, the king would never attack merchants no matter how tense the war. Where Iodon wouldn't be able to, like, because Sereni suggested going to him with the truth. And they're like, he's not going to understand. Because Iodon, as a merchant and not a politician, doesn't understand why a country would attack merchant ships.
Yes. So they're talking and they're talking about, like, how he did it, and Sereni says he probably is using Svordish warships for the task. Now, one, Svorden, we've talked about it before, they're obviously, like, the most
advanced,
like, modern type of advanced than anyone else. And it just baffles me that, like, Svorden isn't a bigger player in everything. Like, we always think it's like, okay, Erelon and Teod, and then Fjordell.
Yeah.
And like Svorden is a Fjordell state, but I almost like would think they wouldn't be because of how advanced they are. I feel like they would be able to break off of the Fjordell Empire because they're so, you know, like advanced compared to everyone else.
Yeah. And one of the things obviously is going to be their proximity.
Sure. Yeah.
But what I'm wondering right now is obviously we've got in Fjorden, you've got Duckcore.
Uh huh.
In Jindo, you have Cheshan.
Yep.
In Erelon, you have
Aondor.
Aondor. In the Rose Empire, you have Forgery.
Yep.
Locationally based power systems.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if Fjordell has a power system that we just haven't seen anything of.
Svorden has one.
Yes,
Is that's what you're wondering?
Yeah.
They might, but like you would also maybe have to ask if, Jayador has one
Mhm.
or Hragan or Hrovel.
Yeah.
You think like there might be one for each of the countries?
I mean, Jindo isn't any bigger on the map than Erelon or Svorden. Like Erelon is
Yeah.
smaller than Svorden.
I don't think
So
the size of the country matters. There's something. It's hard because we always associate Aondor with devotion and Dakor with dominion.
right.
But like, where does Cheshan, where does blood sealing, where does forgery fit into that?
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's really hard to say. Hopefully, we'll learn more with the next book.
Yes. Also, one thing I'd like to correct that we've been saying wrong.
Oh,
And it's my fault, but in regards to invested arts, we've been talking about net positive and net negative and
oh
net
yeah, it's
neutral.
like end positive.
Yes, that
Yeah.
is the correct terminology is end positive, end negative, and end neutral. And I read a word of Brandon this week where they talked about like the only confirmed end negative is hemalurgy.
Okay.
And somebody asked him like, have we seen another end negative thing? And he's like, yeah, you've seen like hints of another thing. So I was like,
That
I
sounds like Dakor
I
to me.
feel like it's Dakor. So
Sounds like
anyway,
Dakor to me.
moving on.
Okay. So moving on from that, I have to I don't know if this disagreement happened on pod
I think it did.
or just in real life, one of the two, but me and Jax have disagreed about whether Royal and the other nobles in this group knew if Kiine was Driok Crushed Throat. I said they did. He said they didn't. His brother also agreed with him that they didn't. And it says here they're talking about Driok and they're all kind of like, wasn't he Sportish? And then Ahane's like, oh, I heard he was Fjordell. And then Royale is like, no, I think he was supposed to be Aeonic. Basically confirming that they don't know who Driok Crushed Throat is.
Yeah.
So you were right. I was wrong.
I marked all of that and I wrote in my book, I said, eat it, Jake.
I marked all that and I wrote in my book, darn.
But you might have been right. I don't know that was on the pod. I feel like that was
It
just
might have
us
been
chatting.
a Marco Polo
Yeah.
sort of thing. So yeah.
That's where a lot of our Cosmere conversations take place now because we don't work on the same job site anymore.
Yeah.
We Marco Polo each other.
There and here,
And
if it has to do with Elantris. Anyways, moving on.
Yeah, they keep talking. They talked about how basically what had happened is King Iadon had purchased a bunch of boats and a bunch of silks, like spent all his money because of the return that he was going to get.
Yeah.
And has lost a bunch of them. And Shuden was like, His Majesty got greedy. And Ahane is like, we're all greedy, Shuden. And don't forget your family earned its fortune by organizing the spice route from Jindo. And I'm like, okay, I don't think you need to be calling everybody greedy just because of they earned a fortune.
Yeah.
But Shuden says, let me rephrase. The king let his greed make him foolish. You should never ship what you can't afford to lose.
Yeah.
So that's
good.
Yeah.
It goes on to say that like Shuden, even though he's like one of the youngest of the group, he's very easily like proving himself to be as shrewd as Royale. Um, so Shuden's great. Anyways, they go on to talk about how if Iadon falls, Telri will take the throne. And Royale's like, my old friend isn't the best, but we'd have a lot of a harder time fixing things if Telri were to take the throne.
Yes.
So they're all in agreement that they want to keep Iadon on the throne, at least for now.
Yeah. And so it says he has few enough ships that they have to deliver a solid profit. And he's like, Ahane's like, solid? Try extraordinary.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
something miraculous is going to have to happen in order for this to work. And this is where Sereni kind of presents the idea like, oh, well, let's make a deal with
Yeah,
Tio.
yeah, yeah. So everyone's kind of like, okay, whatever, let's like disperse. She's like, actually, one more thing. That was a Hamilton reference that you didn't seem to get, but that's okay. Anyways, she goes, I've been thinking about my widow trial.
Oh, she does ask them before that, like, asked if everybody's doing what she asked with the planting.
Oh yeah, they're all like, yes.
Yeah.
When can we see results? And she's like, well, hopefully in less than 2 months, because that's our time thing.
Well, she doesn't know that
No, I'm
Prathan's timeline.
Well,
She
I think
says,
2 months is also when the tax season
oh, yes,
happens.
you're right. Sorry, that time frame. Yes,
which is pretty close to the Hrathen time frame as well.
I think so.
Because Raoden's been in Elantris for 3 weeks now,
Mhm.
and Hrathen used up a week traveling. So I think they're at 4 weeks since the start of Hrathen's timer, which means he would only have 2 months left.
Yeah.
So pretty freaking close, actually.
Pretty freaking close, my guy.
Anyways, she's like, I've been thinking about my widow's trial. This is what I'm doing. And they're all like jaw dropping, like, oh my gosh, like, why are you doing this? Like, you're not gonna get any support. The king's not even gonna allow it. Blah 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 blah.
Right, because what she's proposing is taking food into an Elantris.
Yeah. And they're like, well, we don't want to go into Elantris.
Yeah.
The king's not gonna allow you to go into
Yeah,
Elantris.
it's illegal
Yeah,
to go into
yeah.
Elantris currently.
So she's just kind of like, I'll talk to the king. Like, I'll figure it out. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. I'll make a deal. Don't worry about it. Anyways, she basically is like, well, the Gjorn is trying to turn the people against Elantris and Shukorath. I'm going to work to make sure people see the Elantrians not as demons, but just pitiful people.
Yeah, and again, they're sitting here like, you are just making too much of a deal out of this whole Giorn situation.
Yeah.
Like, it's not that serious.
It's not clocking to them that she's standing on business. Sorry, I've been saying that meme for weeks now. Anyways, she does say, I like this line. She says, its people are just poor wretches that want to eat. We can defeat Hrathen with a simple truth. It is hard to demonize a man after you have seen tears in his eyes as he thanks you for feeding him.
Yeah.
So that's her plan.
Yep. And she asked them, like, will you guys go with me when I do this?
And they're like,
and they're Edon's like, well, this is all speculative anyway. You're never gonna get the king to agree to this, so it doesn't matter.
She's like, but if I do.
Well, she kind of calls him out. She's like, okay, I'll never get the king, but if I do, will you go with me?
And then Shuden, always being, literally Shuden's the best character in this group.
Yeah.
He's like, I will. I'll go with you.
Love Shuden.
Yeah, he's always the first to agree to things. He was the first to agree. No, actually, that was the army guy. What's his name?
Eondel?
Eondel was the first to agree to the paying the workers like 10% of their profit. So I'm lying, but Shuden has a great moment here. He says, I will go with you. And Sereni smiled at him.
Yeah, and Royal chimes in. He's like, if Shuden's going to do it, I doubt the rest of us will have the humility to say no.
Yeah.
Go get your permission, and we'll talk about it again.
So it then jumps to her outside of Iadon's study, and she's talking to Ash. Ash was not like at the meeting, but he was close enough to hear like everything they said in the meeting.
Okay.
And she's like, I don't know if I can do this. Like maybe I was too optimistic, blah, blah, blah. And then he was like, "Do you know like what you're gonna do?" And she's like, "Not really. But did you speak with my father?" Like I asked. So she apparently asked Ash to speak to King Aventio about doing a lucrative trade deal.
Yeah, getting permission from Aventio for the funds, basically.
Yes.
Which I thought was interesting that Ash can just communicate with Aventio on his own. He doesn't.
Yeah.
It's not just. It doesn't have to be magic FaceTime.
It
Like
could just
Sereni
be
doesn't have to talk through Ash.
Sion voice going through probably the other Sion.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which I thought was interesting.
That is kind of interesting. And she's like, "All right, let's go."
Yeah, because Aventio did agree.
Yeah.
Ash said yes. He said he'll give you whatever financial aid you need. So,
Yeah. So she's like, "Let's go," and she walks up to the guards and just bullies them into letting her into the king's study.
because the king is in his study and has requested that nobody be let in, and so she's walking up to the guards like, "Hey, we've got orders to not let anybody in," and she's like, "That doesn't apply to family." She's like, "If Ishan were to come over here, like, would you stop her?" And they're like,
Ishan never comes
because Ishan would never
Yeah,
come,
yeah.
you know? And so she's like, "Well, let me in, and if he throws me out, then you'll know not to let me in next time."
Yeah.
And then they just like don't do anything.
She just walks past
She
them.
just walks past him and
Yep.
opens the door herself.
And she comes in, and Iadon, where am I looking at? Yeah. Iadon looked up from his desk. A pair of spectacles she had never seen him wear before balanced on the end of his nose. He quickly pulled them off and stood, slamming his hands against the desktop, disturbing several invoices. I thought it was funny that like he quickly took off his glasses as if
Yeah.
it was like a secret that he needed
That he needs
glasses.
reading glasses.
Yeah, because he's like, he sees her come in and he's like, "Oh," and takes them off. I was like, "What are you doing here?"
Yeah, he's like, "You aren't content to annoy me in public, so you have to follow me to my study as well."
Begone, woman.
Yeah, and leave me to my work. He says, "If I'd known what a foolish, spindly girl you were, I would never have signed that treaty." Which I was like,
Yeah.
man, like, she really getting on this guy's nerves.
And then Sereni goes,
Drops her facade.
so all King Iadon has seen her as is like this dumb-witted girl. And then she hits him with, "I'll tell you what, father. I'll pretend to be an intelligent human, being capable of a semi-lucid conversation, and you pretend the same thing." And he goes, "Ragdomai," which apparently is like a very vile curse.
She's only heard it twice in her life before this.
When was the other time you think she heard that curse?
Oh,
I would almost.
when Kian tried to take the throne.
I'm thinking it's like she was in the vicinity of her father, and an attendant came up to King Aventio and whispers like, like pirates are here, like Crushed Throat is here to like attack, and like we're preparing for war. And King Aventio goes, "Ragdomai," like because he knows it's his brother.
Yeah.
And he's like, I feel like that would be the other time she's heard it.
Yeah, that's the only time that I can think of. I think it was 2 other times. And
Yeah.
it says she's only heard it twice.
So it'd be
But-
here and then that other time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's when she heard it. I think it was King Aventio.
It says, "You tricked me, woman. I could have you beheaded for making me look the fool."
Start decapitating your children, father, and people will begin to ask questions.
So she's completely dropped the facade.
Yes.
She's ready to stop acting the idiot in front of King Iadon, and she's standing on business.
Yes. She clocks it and she's standing on business. She then goes on to kind of like expose Iadon's predicament. She's like, "I know that you lost all these ships. I know you don't have the money to stay in control." And he's kind of like, "How do you know these things?"
And she's like, "Everyone knows."
Everyone knows. She's playing his although she doesn't know it.
She doesn't know.
She's
Yeah.
playing on his paranoia. She just kind of made it as an offhanded comment.
Yeah,
like
trying
everyone in the
to
court.
keep him off.
Yeah, she's
off
like,
his-
everyone in the court's talking about it. And he responds, and she's like, oh, he's paranoid.
Yeah, because he's like, "I knew it." And she's
Yeah.
like, oh.
Oh, he's paranoid. Like, I can work with this. And she goes on to be like, he hides it pretty well.
Yeah,
Like,
because his face dropped for a second and then it was back up. Like
yeah,
she saw the paranoia and then he was back.
this is the passage I was referencing I don't know if you remember back in like some of our first episodes, I talked about how King Iodon actually can like has a poker face and like can hide his emotions very well.
Okay.
And this is what I was referencing is her noticing like, oh, he's good at hiding this
Yeah.
sort of thing. Um, and so she's like, I have something that could help. Like,
Yeah. He's like, so you propose a deal. And she's like, I do. Silk is going for a premium in Teod right now. One could make quite a profit selling it to the king.
mhm.
And considering certain familial relations, you might be able to talk Aventio into giving you sole mercantile rights in this country.
Yeah. Immediately, he's like,
Throws the flag up.
yeah.
Flag on the play.
He's like,
Because
that's too good to be true.
exactly. He's a merchant. He's
Yeah.
like,
Exactly what the group told her would happen is happening. So she quickly is like, I would, of course, require something in return.
yeah.
Kind of be like, I'm not just giving you this. Like, this is a deal. We're working this out.
Yeah.
And then he's like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
I can dig that. Like, what do you want?
Yeah. And so she's like, I want to go into Elantris.
Yeah.
And he's like,
He's like,
what?
why?
So she's talking about she has to perform her widow's trial. She wants to bring food to him. And he's like, why Elantris? And she's like,
religious
religious
reasons. Yeah,
reasons.
religious reasons. Like Domai says you should help the most pitiful. And like you'd be hard pressed to find anyone more pitiful than Elantrians, right?
Yeah.
Right?
He's like, out of the question. He's like, it's against the law. And she's like,
Yeah.
well, you made the law.
You are the law. You are a skybreaker. Okay?
No.
He is the law.
No.
You are Zeth's son Villano. Okay.
And we're done. And that's the episode this week, guys.
It's here, confirmed. King Iodon is Seth's son Villano.
I can't do this with you. I can't do this with you anymore. I can't do it.
Isn't this exactly what you wanted to do with me?
Oh.
They make a deal. They make a deal, but he puts on some
Some restrictors, some stipulations.
like you gotta enter an hour before noon and be out before an hour after noon, only 10 people at a time, including guards, blah 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 blah. She's like, okay, here's my Sion, you could chat with Pop Pop. And that's that.
And that's that. So he calls Aventio, works it out. Serini was glad she was standing in the room when he does because Aventio, so like Aventio is a politician, not a merchant.
Yes.
And so once Iodon realized that, he kind of pounced and like was gonna take Aventio for all he was worth, you know?
Yeah.
But they even still ended up like selling the silks at like 4 times the price. So Serini got exactly what she wanted out of
Yeah.
this.
So she leaves and she goes back to her room. And as soon as she enters the room, her Sion's like, it's not clean again.
Yeah.
What are these maids doing?
Yeah. And Sereni's like, I didn't leave it that messy. Like,
He's like,
chill.
no. He's like, no, you're tidy. You're fine. But like, you can't let these maids not do their work. They're going to end up not respecting you.
Yeah. And
Sort of
he's just talking about her image with the people. You know, he's like, you were so concerned. And she's like, I always treat my maids well. And he's like, I'm not talking about how you treat them.
Yeah.
I'm talking about how you let them treat you.
Yeah.
And like the image that they have. And that was really good on my part because those words are not in the book, but that was
You're doing great. Keep it going.
He's like, you cannot just let them like not do this
Yeah.
and disregard you. They'll start to lose respect for you.
It's a thing of servants, not lords.
Yeah.
Sort of thing. And so he knows because he's a servant. He's like, you can't let this happen. So like something has to happen. And then she's kind of like I thought like people like me, you know, stuff like. And she's like, her Sion Ash is kind of like, yeah, like you treat your servants well, but you're a noble woman. You fall under the thing of like not knowing, like not caring what servants think of you. Like you ignore their opinions.
Yeah.
And this leads her to go to be like, oh wait, maybe that's later.
Well, she does. She says, okay, point taken, like fetch Miela for me.
Yes.
Which is Aeon Mie, which we haven't seen before.
Mm-hmm.
And it's thoughtfulness and caring.
It also has Aeon Ele, which is beauty and handsomeness. But
yes. But yeah, it's like Mie is the Aeon that her name is based off of, and Aele
Yeah,
is just kind
possibly.
of happenstance. No, it's in the back of the book.
Okay.
When you look up the Aeons, it typically will tell you like whose name corresponds to it. So when you look up
Yeah.
Aeon Miela is in there.
It's also like that was written by Chris, who doesn't know this person or her parents. So it, like, yes, she's listed under Mie,
Yeah.
but Chris listed her under Mie. All I'm saying is like Sion's yes, it's under Sio because Sio means something that the Sions are really known for.
Yeah.
But for this one, like, we don't know this person. What if her parents were naming her after beauty and handsomeness? And then added ME at the beginning.
Okay.
Oh, that's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying is sometimes
And that's fine.
Yeah. Anyways.
So Ash is like going to go fetch this person, and Serena stops him. She's like, "The people really loved Raoden, didn't
Yeah.
they?"
Yeah, she's having like a I don't want to say like a breakdown, but just like a moment of weakness where she's like showing
Weakness
her
and
insecurities.
realization.
Yes. And he's like, yeah, the people really loved him.
And she's like, "He's a better prince than I am a princess, wasn't he?" Like,
well, and then he goes, I wouldn't say that, my lady. You are a very kind-hearted woman, and you always treat your maids well. Do not compare yourself to Raoden. It is important to remember that you weren't preparing to run a country.
yeah.
Because, like, Raoden he was going to be the next king, and he needed to know his subjects, because he was going to be a good king. Raoden's going to be a good king.
And Sereni says, they say he gave the people hope. I love that line.
I'm not going to lie. If this ever became, like, a live action or, like, a TV adaptation, this scene here would give me chills.
Yeah.
I can just like hear them in my mind talking in like low voices and her just being like so insecure and being like, they say he gave the people hope.
It says that the peasants endured Iadon's outrageous burdens because they knew Raoden would eventually take the throne. And like I'm getting chills just like talking about it because it says the country would have collapsed years ago if the prince hadn't gone among them, encouraging them and reviving their spirits.
Oh my!
And I'm just like, I love Raoden.
Reviving their Rayos, dude.
And you ruined it. My chills are gone. All right, moving on. So anyway, they're talking a little bit more, and Ash just says, "Be strong, my lady. Your god will not sit and watch as Erelon and Teod crumble beneath Warren's heel." And I was like, meh. Her god's dead, actually. So
I think it's interesting. I pointed this out before that the Sions do not consider either like any of the Shu Korath, Shu Direth, Shu Kiseg. They do not consider that their gods. They always say like your god.
Yeah.
So I think that's interesting. I almost would say like, do you think the Sions like
No.
they're just like, do you think they're cosmically aware that they came from a shard?
I don't think so.
I also don't think so. I started thinking of like Spren.
Yeah.
And like the Spren don't really know they came from a shard of Adenalcium.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, I don't know. That's a hard question.
Because I feel like the Stormfather does.
Well,
I feel like the Stormfather understands.
The Stormfather was a cognitive shadow of honor.
Yeah.
So like, obviously.
Yeah.
But like normal Spren.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, we can move on. I loved this line from Ash right before he leaves to go get the maid. He goes, "We can be strong in the face of kings and priests, my lady, but to live is to have worries and uncertainties. Keep them inside and they will destroy you for certain, leaving behind a person so calloused that emotion can find no root in your heart." Just a banger line from Ash, and then he just dips. He drops this like crazy philosophical like boom, and then floats through the wall.
And it's like, with that, the Sion passed out through the window in search of the maid Miela.
Banger, dude. Ash is sick.
Banger.
So Miela comes back.
Sereni's got her emotions under control.
And Miela sees the room and she's like, "Oh my goodness. I am so sorry." And she goes on to tell Sereni that, like, they lost another girl today.
Yeah. Says, we lost another girl this afternoon, and it didn't occur to me that your room was on her list. And Serena's like, lost? Lost?
What do you mean, lost?
Mia says, oh, run away, my lady. They aren't supposed to leave. We're indentured like the rest of the peasants. For some reason, we have trouble keeping maids in the palace, however. Doma knows why it is. Doma probably does know, actually. No servant in the country is treated better than those here.
Domai's not real.
Oh, my bad. Uh,
Anyways,
so Serena asks, like, how many have you lost? And she's like, this is the 4th this year.
now, Cell is his own planet, right? It probably doesn't have the same, like, moon phases and moon movement as Earth.
Okay.
But I did look up. Obviously, there's 12 full moons in a year. Not saying that the Jesker mysteries use the full moon for anything, but I just thought there's 12. Sometimes there's 13, and that's called the blue moon. Anyways, but there are 4 to 7 eclipses every year.
Oh, really?
So if it's similar, the 4 would make sense because, you know, there's at least 4 eclipses in a year.
Yeah.
And that's typically when, you know, the whole, like, is taking place, you know?
Right.
So it makes sense, is all I'm saying.
Okay, makes sense. Yeah.
Anyway. And so Manly's like, I will get someone in here right away. And Serene's like, don't let it happen again.
Yeah, don't worry about it tonight. Don't let it happen again.
There it is again, Serene said. And she's talking about the sound she's been hearing every my pawn and my doll and Opidal, which is days in their week. And we know this is King Iadon sneaking out through the secret passage that is on Serena's wall.
Yeah, so Serena, like, hops out of bed and runs over and, like, puts her ear to the wall, trying to, like, listen, and, like, hearing this scratching, and Ash is like, Ash, I think, is a little groggy.
Ash was asleep, and he's like, huh? What are you doing, my lady?
But so she picks up a piece of parchment, writes on it with, like, a piece of charcoal, and she's like, the pattern has started to repeat.
Yeah, so she's heard it twice on my doll and once on Opidal.
Which, these are days of the week.
Yes. So it happened to my Paul, it happened Opidal, and now it's happened on my Paul again.
Yeah, so it happened on Tuesday, Friday, and Tuesday, and Serena's like, a pattern.
But it always happens at the exact same time.
At 11 o'clock. But Ash, like, says, like, you've heard it twice on my doll and once on Opie doll, 3 times in total, he said skeptically. That is hardly evidence of a repeating pattern, my lady. And I'm sorry, I've got to agree with Ash here.
I do, yeah.
She's jumping a little bit at the bit.
Especially,
she's right.
Yeah.
But she's jumping.
Especially if I'm, like, half awake. I'm like, that is not a pattern, you stupid. Like, go to sleep. You know? I need to say something here. Because Opalon, we've always said, was Aeon Opa, which is flower, but it's not.
I know.
But it's listed. It's listed under Opa. So Opilon, which is the name of the continent, is OPE.
Right.
But it's still listed under OPA.
Right. In the Ars Arcanum.
Yes. OPE means nation.
Yes.
So Opalon shouldn't be listed under Opa.
Which is, I guess, point in your favor as to the Ars Arcanum not entirely being accurate with, like, where these get assigned.
Yeah. So I just wanted to point that out, that Opalon should actually be under OP, which means nation, not flower.
Not flower.
So, yeah.
Which makes a lot more sense.
Makes a lot more sense.
I was like, flower?
Why are they naming the continent flower? Flower lawn?
Yeah, so we've got May doll and Opie doll, which I'm going to call Tuesday and Friday.
Yeah. May doesn't have a definition.
Right. It is an Aeon, but it doesn't have a definition in the Copper Mines.
So I'm wondering, like, these are the only 2 days of the week, so to say, that we actually know the names of.
Yeah.
Like, there's no other days that gets named. But I'm wondering, like, what the other days are and what they'd be named after.
Yeah.
Because like Opidal Nation
Day.
Day. And I wonder if there's like, Gold Day or Fire Day or whatever. Anyways, neither here nor there. This is where Serene notices the thick windowsill
Yeah.
that we talked about, I don't know, 2 episodes ago or something.
Yeah. So she stretched her arm through and was like barely able to get her fingers to the other side.
Yeah.
Which I'm going to say means this is only about a 2-foot wide windowsill.
No, I mean, Serene's tall.
Okay.
Serene's tall. I'm kind of short, and I think my arm, like from here, my armpit to the edge of my fingers, probably like 2.5 feet.
Okay.
So if you're taller, I can see it being like 3 feet or maybe a little.
I mean,
Longer.
your wingspan is supposed to be the same as your height. So I've
Right.
got like a 6-foot wingspan, which means from my center of chest to the edge of my fingers is 3 feet. So I'm 6 foot. This is still only going to be 2.5 feet.
Yeah, but you also have to take into consideration that she could be leaning
Yeah.
into it. So like the stretching her arm, she's probably not standing up straight, stretching her arm across the windowsill. I would imagine she would at least be leaning into it a little bit.
Yeah.
But I think we said in the past episode 3 feet.
About 3 feet.
And like a foot and a half and a foot and a half on each side of the window pane.
Which I don't know that there is a window pane because she's just reaching straight through.
Open up the window.
Okay, sure.
Open up the window. Either way, I think it's probably about like 3 feet.
Yeah.
Which is honestly, even 2 feet is enough for someone to walk through.
Yeah, but you also got to think like she's got, even if it's probably a 2-foot passageway, because even if she's got 3 feet, you've probably got 6 inches of stone on either side of this passageway.
Yeah, depending on. Yeah.
So all I'm saying is Iodon be shimmying sideways through this passageway.
Do you think he would be less wide sideways? I don't know if we ever get a description.
I don't think Iodon is that rotund.
Rotund is a word. Anyways, she realizes that the if there was a passageway, it would be leading straight to the king's chambers.
Yeah. And yeah, so Ash is like, the only thing in that direction is, she's like, the king's room. Where else would a passage lead?
Yeah.
And he's like, are you suggesting that the king takes secret excursions twice a week in the middle of the night, my lady?
At precisely 11 o'clock. So she's like very smug and like, I figured this out. Now turn down your light. Some of us are trying to sleep. And that's how the chapter ends.
Dude,
I need you to not.
Some of the stuff that comes out of your mouth.
I need you to not judge me so often, okay? I'm trying to make this podcast entertaining for our audience.
Oh, is that what we're doing?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
What else would we be doing?
So, chapter 21.
Chapter 21. Hrathen's chapter. I could summarize this chapter in 2 sentences.
So that's what you said about Serene's chapter, and we just spent 45 minutes on it. So
yeah, but I also summarized the chapter in 4 sentences. Like, I don't know what you're trying to say here.
Well, I'm just trying to be contrary. That's it.
Devil's advocate. Okay, so Hrathen.
Dreth's advocate.
Are you saying? Okay, well, first of all, it'd be Hyadith's advocate.
I hate you.
I don't know, like, what you're.
You're right.
Are you saying that Yadith is the devil?
Have you seen Dakor, my guy?
Okay, but like, you can't. Dakor is an invested art. It's not technically connected to Sudirath. Let's move on. Let's get through Hrathen's chapter.
Jake is now done with me.
I thought you would crack first and you'd be done with me. Actually, I think you were done with me like last episode. Anyways.
So
Hrathen
calls in Ardif. Arteth Thered.
Therid, and no Aeon.
Fine, Therid.
It's so funny. So funny.
You
I
looked
read.
for an Aeon?
Listen. Let
Why
me
did you look for an Aeon?
let me explain. Okay. I read Artist Theored, and in my head, I said, oh, a lot of the artists, well, maybe not. I misremembered because they're in Erelon. I was like, oh, some of the artists might be Ereline, similar to quote unquote Deloff, who's not actually Ereline, blah, 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 blah. So I was like, ERE, that could be an Aeon. And I stopped reading,
Okay.
right there. And I went and looked. And I didn't find an Aeon. I was like, oh, well, I wrote in my thing, no Aeon. I read the next line, which says, a man of good Fjordell stock. What the heck, Jacob? Maybe read the next line.
Thered had a strong, tall, dark frame and squarish features. He was
was
still
still-
well muscled from his days training in the monastery. Your Grace, the man said, bowing and.
Okay, so we're just back to reading the book word for word, huh? I think Jax is a little tired or something.
I'm broken today, guys. This is my bad.
He's basically like, hey, you want to be the head artist? Like, you're doing pretty good. But actually, he's like, I don't have time for this.
Yeah, because Hrathen has been trying to undermine all of Erelon
Yeah.
and run a chapel.
Yeah.
And he's like, I can't be doing this.
So, the artist is like, actually, I can't. I don't think it would be proper. Sorry. And dips.
And well, Hrathen's like, why? And he's like, I can't give you a reason. I got no good reason. I just wouldn't be good.
Yep. And he's like, may I withdraw? And Hrathen waved his hand, disturbed. Because ambition is a very, like, Dorethi thing. Like, he's like, no.
Well, it doesn't even say Dorethi. Ambition was such a cardinal Fjordell attribute.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So not even just like the religion, but just the nation of Fjordell is very ambitious.
Yes, and so he's kind of like, what is going on? And he's like, you know what? I think I know what is going on. It's that freaking guy, Devoth.
And he thinks for a second, he's like, did Fionn really destroy all these? Because the artist before was very lax, had like gotten too buddy with Erelon.
Yeah.
And he's like, he ruined all of them. And he's like, actually, no, this isn't Fionn. This stinks of Deloff.
Stinks of Deloff stinky stuff. Anyway.
Dude, why does anybody listen to us?
Hey, shout out to like our 66 regular listeners.
Hey, we appreciate you guys.
Appreciate you guys so much. I don't know why.
You don't know why we appreciate our listeners.
I don't know why you guys listen to us. We're like, this is a deep dive, and then we spend half the episode just laughing at each other for doing dumb stuff. It could not continue. Hrathen's world was one of control, predictability, his religion, a logical exercise. Deloff was like a boiling pot of water poured on Hrathen's ice. In the end, they would both just
How much are you reading?
Let me finish. In the end, they would both just end up weakening and dissipated the puffs of steam in the wind. Go for it.
It says he had made a mistake with Deloff, which I think was kind of telling here. Because Hrathen, again, trying to undermine a government, trying to run a chapel, and he's like, while it is possible to channel a zealot's ardor, Hrathen currently had neither the time nor the energy to do so.
Yep.
So he just kind of realized, like, okay, we got to do something about Deloff because I can't do all of this and that.
Yeah, so he writes a letter that's supposed to go to Wern, and he's like, yo, Deloff, I got something for you to do, and I can only trust you because you're my homeboy, right? You're my homeboy. Here's this letter. Take it to the G, and, like, I'll see you in a couple of weeks, homie, you know? And he's like, are you sure? Like, I don't, like, you'll miss me, right? And I'll miss you. Don't worry. I'll miss you. And then he's like, okay, I'll get the gang together and we'll go. And he's like, gang? Homie, I asked you to do this. And he's like, yeah, but you don't expect me to leave without my Odivs, right? It's like, Odivs? Like, who did you swear is Odiv? And he's like, just like everybody. And Hrathen's like, oh my gosh, if all these people leave, My plan is ruined. I can't let that happen.
Well, yeah. So Hrathen had not thought about Deloff calling Otis, but he's perfectly within his right to do so
Yeah.
as an Artith, because Hrathen made him a full Artith.
Yep.
As an Artith, he is like well within his rights to swear Otis.
Mhm.
He's been swearing Otis of the Araline
Nobility.
converts. Yeah, like the
all
nobility.
the important people that are supporting Hrathen.
Yes. And so he starts naming names, and most people call 1 or 2 Otis. Deloff's got 30.
Yeah, even Bjorns have as many as 10 sometimes.
Yeah.
Deloff has over 30.
Yeah. And so he lists off all the names, and Hrathen just kind of like,
oh man.
Because for a second he was a little worried because Deloff was ready to go.
Yeah.
To Fjordell.
He's like, oh, maybe Deloff, like this is what Deloff wanted.
This is what he wanted. It was
Yeah.
like to frustrate me here and get his foot in the door in Fjordell.
Yeah.
Fjorden. I say that wrong all the time, and I'm so sorry.
They get it.
But he's like, I can't send them because one of two things is going to happen. One, all these people are going to go with him, and if all these people leave, can't have that. Two, they're going to ignore him when he says you have to come with me because they're Araline.
Yeah.
They're so new to the gospel.
They don't understand how much power they gave Deloff over them
by swearing this
Otiv Froden bond.
Yes.
And so he's like, and if that happens, I will be forced to excommunicate all of them.
Yes.
So either way, lose
30 of the like most important people to my plan right now.
Yep. And so he's like, never mind, come back.
He's like, all right, well, just find somebody else to send the freaking letter.
Yeah, which I doubt he even actually does.
He might, but the funny thing is, Deloff also knows that he's got a Sion. He knows that Hrathen has a Sion. Hrathen doesn't need to be sending letters to...
Does Deloff know?
Yeah, he's a Grogdet.
Yeah,
he uses it.
He uses it?
He uses it later. He uses the Sion.
Yeah, but does he, like, know of the Sion before that?
Pretty sure.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure Deloff knows everything that's going on right now.
Yes. I always considered the Sions like a Gjorn thing, not a Grogdet thing. Because they're like more out. Like they're doing their own thing, you know.
The Grogdets?
Yeah.
I think, they're out doing their own thing, but I think they use Sions as well.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah, he knows that, and so yeah, it's funny. I doubt he actually sends a letter now because he doesn't need a letter to report to Wern.
Yeah, the letter was to get Deloff out of here.
Yeah, I'm sure the letter said something like, "Yo, sorry, Wern, I needed this guy out of my way, so I sent him to you. Like, kill him if you want." Yeah, I'm sure that's what the letter actually said or something.
Oh man. So he tells him to find somebody else to deliver the message, and Deloff says, I am, as always, my Hroden's humble servant.
Yep.
Which he's not.
He's not. He's really not. So Hrathen fled again, is how the next paragraph starts, and he goes to his chambers, is stewing in there for a couple hours, and is like, I gotta get out of here. So then he goes to the wall of Elantris, as he always does.
On his way, he gets stopped by a beggar.
Yeah.
And we don't see a lot of beggars in Kai. This is the first one we've seen. I think Sereni remarked about the fact that she hasn't seen any. And so this person is just like, spare some coins, sir.
Oh, it's an old man. It's like, spare some coins, sir.
Where's he from, bro?
Right. Okay. What's the Araline...
spare some coins, sir.
So we're assuming they're like American.
Spare some coins, sir. Anyways, there's a younger boy accompanying this older man, and he's like, not him, you fool. Not him, you fool.
So Hrathen's like, yo. It's like, tell me.
Yo.
Why is Hrathen a gangster this episode?
Yo, tell me.
I don't know.
Why do I see none of the other beggars in the city?
He's like, yo, home dog, I ain't never seen people like you before. Here. What's up with that? And the youth is like, don't like, let's dip. And the old guy's like, well, it's outlawed. You see? All right, I can't keep doing it. He's like, it's against the law, and so like we can only come out at night, and during the day we all hang out in the other towns.
Yeah. We hang out in north, south, and west, you
Yeah.
know?
None of this east crap. Not allowed in the east. This is becoming too like.
All right, all right, all right. And he talks about, he's like, I wasn't always a beggar. I used to be a woodworker in Elantris.
Yeah.
He was like, I was a carpenter. He was like, I was one of the best. He's like, but I didn't make a very good farmer.
Nah. So all the people that become beggars are pretty much runaways from the farms.
Yes.
And
if they get caught,
they go back.
back to the farm.
Go back to the farm. They go back to the farm if they get caught. And so the old man's like, yeah, we can only really beg from like merchants. Like sometimes they give us coin, but we can never beg from like important people or else they'll rat us out.
Yeah.
And then he looks up at Hrathen and he's like, you don't look like a merchant.
Wraithen says, I'm not, drops a bag of coins. And I'm thinking like, my headcanon here, I'm sure it's just a small little coin pouch,
Yeah,
but I was thinking like, if you've seen the Robin Hood, like animated, like with
Yes.
the animals, like these huge bags of coins,
stacks of coins. They're the one they're like tying to the rope and like zip lining out. That's exactly what I thought of. That's not what I thought of too. So like, drops this bag of coins, clunk.
He's like, that's for you. Drops the second bag of coins. It's like, that's for the others.
Very unrealistic that Hrathen would have 2 Robin Hood size bags of coins on his person.
I wrote in here, I was like, Hrathen, good guy, but also, why are you carrying around 2 bags of coins? Like, what's going on here?
This is another part of the story that lets me know, or lets me think that like Hrathen's not a bad guy.
Yeah.
He's actually trying to do what's best.
Like, take that like whole scene. He talks to this beggar. Why are there no beggars? All this and this and this. Drops him 2 bags of coins. What does Hrathen gain from that?
The information, I guess. But that's
But
it.
he had information before he paid.
Yeah.
There was nothing that gained Hrathen. It wasn't to like influence the beggars. It wasn't to get them on their side. It wasn't this and this. Like, Hrathen is just genuinely
Giving to the poor.
Like, he cares about the people. Like,
yes.
Hrathen is not the bad guy here.
Hrathen is not the bad guy.
Pick an avocado.
Pick an avocado. The real ones know what we're talking about there. So he's up on top of the Elantris city wall now.
Right.
And he's just looking over Kai, and he's in his head, and he hears some footsteps, and it ends up being Father Omen.
Yes.
Omen. Father Omen.
I mean, it should be Omine, but yes, we call him Father Omen.
Omine. And him and Hrathen have a little chat.
He starts off by saying, it was so much nicer once. And I wrote in here, I was like, beautiful. Once so very beautiful.
Oh boy. Turns around, it's Father Omen, head of the Karathi religion in Kai. And Omen goes on to say, like, of course, that was back when the Elantrians still ruled. The city's fall was probably good for our souls, but still, I can't help recalling those days with awe.
Yeah, because this is a Karathi priest.
Yes.
And so his religion is not like opposed to the Elantrians, but like worshiping the Elantrians.
Not Karathi.
Not Karathi.
Yes. So he's like, it's probably better that like people don't worship them now, but like back then, like
It was
we
beautiful.
had it good, bro.
Yeah.
He goes on, you've mentioned this line before, but he goes, the Elantrians can turn stone into corn and dirt into steak. Which I just want to say, this is blue lined.
Oh, okay.
Because we've mentioned before, this is a Words of Brandon where I think you mentioned it in your explanation as well. Powers that are similar are typically working in the same way. So I wrote soul casting here because that's similar to what soul casting does, is turn one material into another. And since all investiture came from Adenalcium, quote unquote, like it's still Adenalcium's investiture all the way down to soul casting and Elantrian magic.
Yeah.
Like it's still just investiture, so they work very similarly.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I blue lined.
Yeah. Yeah, and that was a Cosmere question of the week we had in one of our earlier episodes where somebody asked us, when an Elantrian creates something out of thin air, does it also create a cognitive and spiritual version of that thing?
Yeah.
And my answer to that was, I don't think Elantrians do create things out of thin air.
Right.
It's a transformation similar to soul casting.
Yes. And then Father Omen goes on to say, could devils do that much good in this world? Would they even want to?
Yeah.
Just great question for Hrathen here. And Hrathen is kind of he doesn't respond. He simply stood. And then Hrathen's finally like, how did you find me?
Yeah.
Like,
And
why are you here?
Omen's like, it's well known that you spend your nights up here. He's like, your supporters say you come here and plan how to defeat the vile Elantrians, and your opponents say you come because you feel guilty for condemning a people who have already been cursed.
Yeah.
And Hrathen's like, and what do you say? And I actually love this whole dialogue.
I am not opposed to just reading through the dialogue here because it's so good.
Yeah.
So Omen is like, I say nothing. It doesn't matter to me why you climb these stairs, Hrathen. I do, however, wonder why you preach hatred of the Elantrians when you yourself simply pity them.
Hrathen responds, it's not so hard once you accustom yourself to it. A man can force himself to hate if he wishes, especially if he convinces himself that it is for a higher good.
The oppression of a few beings, salvation to the many.
You'd best not mock, Araline. You have a few options, and we both know that the least painful one will require you to do as I do.
To profess hatred where I have none. I will never do that, Hrathen.
Pause. I love that line from Omen,
good.
because that's what Hrathen's doing. He does. He pities these. He admits it here. Like, where did I write that? Yeah, he says a man can force himself to hate if he wishes, especially if he convinces himself that it's for greater good.
Yeah.
He's admitting, I don't hate them. You're right. I do pity them. I don't hate them, but I know this is for the greater good. And Omen is like, I can't profess hate where I have none. Like, the Karathi religion preaches tolerance and acceptance as like its main tenet.
Yeah.
Can't.
Yeah. This is also, we didn't mention it in Sereni's chapter, but some of the groups in Raoden's old group, some of the people in Raoden's old group, even say this, because they're like, why doesn't like the Karathi priests just like agree with Hrathen?
Yeah, because Sereni was talking about like, oh, we need to side with Elantris because Hrathen is pitting himself against it, and the reason he's pitting himself against it is because Shukorath, he's trying to tie Shukorath and Elantris, and they're like, well, just have the Karathi priest side with Hrathen against Elantris, problem solved.
Yeah, and they all go to say like he would never do that.
Yeah.
Like he wouldn't ever, lie and say he hated stuff when he doesn't. Like they say that in just the previous chapter, and it just gets confirmed here with Omen saying like, I will never do that, Hrathen. Hrathen goes on to say like, then you will become irrelevant.
Yeah. And Omen says, is that the way it must be then?
Says Shukorath is docile and unassuming priest. Shu-Dirath is vibrant and dynamic. It will sweep you away like a roaring flood rushing through a stagnant pool.
You act as if truth were something to be influenced by persistence, Hrathen.
I'm not speaking of truth or falsehood. I'm simply referring to physical inevitability.
And this is why we typically don't read word for word.
You cannot stand against Fjorden, and where Fjorden rules, Shu-Dirath teaches.
One cannot separate truth from actions, Hrathen.
Pause. What a line, bro. One cannot separate truth from actions, Hrathen. Like, Omen is one-twoing Hrathen. It's bah, bah, bah. Like, he's just saying all the right things. And I love it.
Physically inevitable or not, truth stands above all things.
Pause! Banger! Such good dialogue here from Omen. Okay, go ahead.
It is independent of who has the best army, who can deliver the longest sermons, or even who has the most priests. It can be pushed down, but it will always surface. Truth is the one thing you can never intimidate.
And if Shudireth is the truth?
Then it will prevail. Love that line from Omen. Dude, he's literally like just got all the right things to say.
Because
here.
he's not just being like, oh, I have the truth and like my truth is blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
He's just saying truth in general. I think he's being so unbiased here.
Yeah.
He's like, if yours is the truth, then it will prevail.
Yeah.
And it's so good.
Then it will prevail, but I didn't come to argue with you.
Oh?
No, I came to ask you a question.
Then ask, priest, and leave me with my thoughts.
I want to know what happened. What happened, Hrathen? What happened to your faith? Chills, bro.
Bro, it's so good. Like, Father Omen, underrated, bro. He's so I love this chapter. Hrathen goes, my faith? He asked with shock.
Yes, Omen said, his words soft, almost meandering. You must have believed at one point. Otherwise, you wouldn't have pursued the priesthood long enough to become a Yorn, but you lost it somewhere. I have listened to your sermons. I hear logic and complete understanding, not to mention determination. I just don't hear any faith, and I wonder what happened to it.
Now, we don't just read through this because, like, we love the dialogue. This is actually very important to understand Hrathen and where he's at.
Yes.
And, you know, with Shudireth and his faith and, like, his
like,
character building.
Omen hit it on the head.
Bop.
Where Hrathen, like, he's having a crisis of faith. Yes. Actively throughout this whole book.
Yes.
Hrathen is having a crisis of faith.
And Hrathen doesn't realize it until probably, you know, about where we're at. Like, he doesn't realize it. But basically from here on out, Hrathen is going to be having this inner debate with himself of like, what do I believe? Do I just like Shudireth because of its orderliness? Like, all of, like, the rest of the book, we will see him in active faith crisis mode, pretty much.
Yeah. So it says, Hrathen hissed inward slowly, drawing a deep breath between his teeth. Let's go, he finally ordered.
Hit a nerve.
That was his only response. Like, he sat there for a second after Hrathen just after Omen just, like, dismantled his whole belief system.
And then
he's just like,
go. Leave. Yeah. And Omen didn't answer. By the time Hrathen, like, looked, Omen was already leaving, like, already going down the stairs. So that's Hrathen's chapter.
The last line, though, is so great.
I marked it as well. It goes, Hrathen stood on the wall for a long time that night.
I love that. Like, I just love the emotions that all of that provoked, but, like, that ending, like, Hrathen stood on the wall a long time that night. Because you can tell, like, he's not just angry. Like, he's not telling Omen to go because he's angry.
Yeah.
He's telling Omen to go because he's
right.
Right. And this is probably the first time that Hrathen has really contemplated that.
Oh, my goodness. I have to give my props to Brandon.
Yeah.
I always praise Brandon for his unique power systems and his world building. But we have to talk about how good he is at dialogue.
Yeah.
Because it's not just this book. I can name 5 banger lines out of the Stormlight archives like that because they're just there and they stick and it's so good all the time.
Yeah.
Oh, man. I love it. I was such a good Hrathen chapter. Short and, like, not a lot happens, but, like, the understanding that we get into Hrathen's mind through a priest of the opposite religion telling it to him is just so good. And I loved it so much.
Yeah. And that is Hrathen's chapter.
Yeah.
That wraps up our chapters for this week. It is time to get into our
Cosmere question of the week. Yep. Now, we got a comment on one of our... Yes?
I was just going to say, to preface, we discussed in our episode last week about wanting to see an end for Marsh.
Wanting to see what Marsh is going to do in the next era of Mistborn, and I had said I want to see him die.
Yeah.
Not because I hate him, but because he deserves a rest.
He deserves a rest.
And I want to see him go out and maybe a similar way to Wayne, where he's like sacrificing himself, something like just a good end for Marsh.
Yeah.
Is what we want.
Going out on his terms,
Yes.
not on, oh, we can't
find
afford the ATM to keep you alive.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
So,
So someone commented on that episode, basically saying, "What if in the third era of Mistborn we see Kelsier and Marsh fight,
yeah.
and that's how Marsh dies?"
Yeah, so this is Aiden Oliveras, and it says, "What if Marsh dies fighting Kelsier towards the end of Era 3?" And so we kind of wanted to take that as our cosmic. It's obviously not posed as like a deep
Yeah.
thought, like,
So we took it, and we're going to sort of answer the question: why?
yeah, what would have to happen in order for us to see that?
In order for Kelsier and Marsh to be fighting in such a way that Marsh dies from it.
Yeah.
Like, what's going down? So
The first thing that has to happen, in my opinion, Kelsier needs some powers back because he's not in a position to be able to kill Marsh.
Kelsier is a cognitive shadow stapled to a body, doesn't have any invested arts. He just he's just living,
Yeah.
and that's it. And yes, he's the leader of a very important group in the Cosmere, but like I don't think the question is asking, oh, like the Ghost Bloods are killing Marsh. It sounds
Yeah,
more like
it's like Kelsier and Marsh fight.
Yes, Kelsier v. Marsh. What's going on?
Which I'm not gonna lie, I would hate to see.
I really would hate.
I really
We're
would just I would hate everything about it.
we're gonna start this off by saying, Brandon, I know you're basically done writing Ghost Bloods, but please do not make Kelsier fight Marsh and kill Marsh. That is not the way we want to see Marsh go out.
No, because in the first, like, their relationship is just like sad.
It's rocky, it's sad, and like
I'd rather see a resolution between them because it talks about in the first era of Mistborn why their relationship is so strained.
Mhm.
And the reason is because they're both half breed, Ska and Noble. They both have invested arts, obviously. Kelsier didn't growing up, but
right.
they didn't grow up as Ska.
They grew up as noble.
They grew up as nobles hiding their Ska side, where most half Ska, half noble grow up as Ska
Yes.
and just have noble blood and maybe some powers. They were in noble society. But being in noble society like that, there's always the fear that you will get caught.
Yes.
But having a brother who is also playing that game, there's always the fear that they will get caught, because if they get caught, you're done for.
Yeah.
And so they would always tell each other when they left, like, hey, be careful out there or be safe out there. But there was always like the under, like, don't screw it up for me.
Yes.
And that was like all the like tension and stress that put on their relationship. We've never seen a coming to terms of that between them.
Yes.
So for them to battle it out and Kelsier kill Marsh, I couldn't.
No. So, yeah, that's the thing is like, one, I don't want Marsh to go out like that.
No.
That would be terrible. But two, I also would hate the light that would shine on Kelsier, because we all like kind of know Kelsier's kind of a bad guy, but we all love Kelsier. We all love Kelsier, and I would hate for that to be held over Kelsier as like, yeah, but he killed Marsh.
Yeah.
I would hate that for Kelsier, because I want to love Kelsier.
Because up until this point, has Kelsier really done anything that heinous? Yeah, he's the leader of the Ghost Bloods, and the Rosharan Ghost Bloods are doing some heinous stuff.
It's hard to say that Kelsier really even has a hand in that.
I just don't think he does.
Yeah.
I think they're removed far enough that he just doesn't have the control. So what, in all honesty, has Kelsier done?
So he's propped himself up as like a god, pretty much.
Man did ascend.
Yeah,
Small A,
yeah.
but still.
I mean, like, he kills a bunch of noblemen.
Yeah.
So, like, he was kind of racist, I guess, in a sense. Um, post post cognitive shadow, he's just like he's led the Ghost Bloods, so you can a small way like put any of the Ghost Bloods crimes on him, but at the same time, he like helped save Scadrial in Era 2. The Rosharans, like, the Ghost Bloods on Roshar are kind of posed as like the enemies. But like, what did the Ghost Bloods on the Roshar really do that everyone else wasn't doing, right? Because their same goal was like find Urithiru and do all this. And like the Sons of Honor was doing that. The main characters were doing that. The Ghost Bloods were doing that. Like,
Yeah, it's just the way the Ghost Bloods operate that just like.
sure, but also the way the Sons of Honor operated.
I mean, I don't think anybody out here is like defending the Sons of Honor.
No, yeah. I'm trying to defend the Ghost Bloods, is what I'm trying to say. Either way, we already said it's hard to see Kelsier really having a hand in what like Murray's was doing.
Yeah.
Before Wind and Truth came out, there was a theory that the Rosharan Ghost Bloods and the Scadrian Ghost Bloods were going to fight.
Right.
That was a theory. But since Wind and Truth came out, the Rosharan Ghost Bloods are kind of not too much of a thing because Murray's is. Your eyes just went wide.
I just realized what time it is.
Oh, what time is it?
It's 5:40.
Wow. Been here a while.
We've been here a minute.
So let's wrap this up. So obviously they would have to be on different sides of an argument.
Right.
And I think the easiest way to say that is Kelsier's on the side of like Scadrial being strong, and then blanking. Marsh is on Harmony side. He kind of works with Harmony more.
Okay.
So if Kelsier and Harmony are fighting, then technically like Kelsier and Marsh would be fighting if Marsh was siding with Harmony.
Yeah. Which I think at the end of the day, Marsh has to side with Harmony.
Yeah.
I think like Harmony can just fully control Marsh whenever he wants.
Yes, because he's so spiked.
Yeah.
So it would almost be Harmony and Kelsier are fighting, and Harmony is puppeting Marsh. Similar to how he's being used by Ruin
in Era 1.
Era 1.
Oh, I'd hate to see it.
I think that would be the most likely scenario we see them fight.
Yeah, if Kelsier's beefing with Harmony, and because obviously Marsh is Harmony's greatest weapon.
And Harmony falls into Discord and then uses Marsh and Tensoon against Kelsier?
Oh, man.
No.
Oh, that would,
Brandon.
that'd be rough.
Did we just spoil Ghost Bloods for everyone? Holy cow, that would be terrible.
Oh, that'd be awful.
I mean, it would be really good writing.
Oh, yeah, no, I'd love to see it, but I'd hate
to see it, bro. No! Oh, no.
I'm sure we're nowhere close to what anything's
I'm sure. I'm sure, like...
But if it does, bro...
You heard it here first.
You did hear it here first.
If Ghost Bloods 3 comes out, and this is what happens, like...
It is August 16th, 2025, and you heard it here first.
Someone has to make us famous, because that'd be a crazy poll. I think that answers it pretty completely.
Yeah, I think that would be the only situation we see that happen is Harmony falls into Discord,
which
puppets Marsh.
For those of you who don't know like what we're saying when Harmony falls into Discord, Harmony has 2 shards, Ruin and Preservation. Ruin has always been slightly stronger because Preservation gave a piece of himself to create humans.
Yes. So that, I mean, Ruin and Preservation, neither of them could create alone.
Right.
So everything they created has an equal measure of Ruin and Preservation. So all of nature has an equal measure. Right. Except for humanity, because Preservation gave just a little bit more of himself to create, like, to put a piece of himself into humanity so that there's slightly more preservation than they are ruin.
So ruin as a whole has slightly more power than preservation. And since Sazed is holding both of them, the fear is that the ruin side of him is going to take over and he falls into discord.
Yeah, so his shard name would become discord.
Yeah, similar to
not
how
harmony.
when odium and honor combine, they became
Retribution.
retribution. Thank you. So that's what we mean when we say harmony falls into discord, puppets marsh to fight Kelsier. Question answered. That's all we have for you guys this week. Join us next week as we dive into the Coppermind. That's a wrap.